editorial board at USA Today has put out an incredibly aggressive piece denouncing and rejecting Donald Trump. It is one of the most aggressive editorial pieces that I've ever seen in regard to the president, and I want to share it with you. Now, this was written after Trump attacked Senator Gillibrand in a sexist tweet, and I'm being actually very generous in just calling it sexist because he essentially argued that she would do anything, including sexual favors, for campaign money. And the editorial board felt like, no, this guy is bottom of the barrel. It's time to really speak our minds about it. So I'm going to read you the relevant parts, but I highly recommend you read the entire piece. Here's what they had to say. A president who would all but call Senator Gillibrand a whore is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama presidential library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush.
Wow, shots fired. My God, I've never seen an editorial like that. One, I've never seen an editorial that strong in a mainstream newspaper in America in either direction. Number two, it's not just a random editorial by one person. It's the editorial board, it's the paper saying this. Now keep in mind, the editorial board is separated from the articles. The articles are fact-based and objective, at least they're supposed to be, and I believe that largely are, but we'll get back to that in a second. The editorial board is supposed to say, hey, sometimes they back Bush in the case of USA Today or Obama, depending on the elections, etc. But now they're going, no, we have to speak out and as forcefully as possible to have you understand what an intolerable guy we have in the office.
Yes.
This is unbelievable, but Anna's got more.
It gets. I don't know if I want to say better. I mean, that first part was pretty epic, okay? 187 on a motherfucking flop. That's like what happened.
Wow,
right
Jesus Lord mercy.
All right.
They wrote that too, it's in the article.
All right, let's give you more. Rock bottom is no impediment for a president who can always find room for a new low.
Man.
He pours the gasoline of sexist language and lights the match gleefully, knowing how it will burst into flame in a country reeling from the Me Too movement moment.
Don't take this the wrong way. I'm just saying politically. Okay, all right, next.
His sickening behavior is corrosive to the enterprise of a shared governance based on common values and the consent of the governed. Trump apparently is going for some sort of record for lying while in office. As of mid-November, he had made 1,628 misleading or false statements in 298 days in office. That's 5.5 false claims per day, according to a count kept by the Washington Post's fact checkers. And then they get into this list. They provide a list of all of the terrible things that Trump has managed to do or say while he's been president. So as of last week, Trump had failed to nominate anyone for 60% of 1,200 key positions he can fill to keep the government running smoothly. So this was a criticism of Trump early on, and that criticism is something that you probably don't hear too much about these days, but it still stands. He has still failed to nominate many people in key positions in government because he's a clown and he doesn't know how to fill those positions.
Yeah, as I told you, he's incompetent. And he doesn't care to do the job. That's like homework to him. He doesn't want to do that. All he wants to do is watch 8 hours of TV a day. And that's why they put in all the memos, his name all over the place so that he'll pay attention. A guy who's this self-centered, it's like 1,200 key positions. Who is that for? That's for the American people? Even if you're a conservative, especially if you're a conservative, you want him to fill those positions.
Yeah.
But he's too lazy to do it because it isn't about him.
So Politico and Morning Consult just recently did a poll which found that 50% of the American electorate believe the sexual assault claims that have been made against Donald Trump. 50%. So half of voters believe the women who have come forward and said that they have been sexually assaulted or sexually harassed by Donald Trump. Then you look at current poll numbers. And current poll numbers are not looking good for Trump. Now, I'm giving you this information to kind of put everything into context. It's not like USA Today's editorial board is alone in feeling their frustration over the president. According to recent polls, 32% of respondents approve of the job Trump is doing as president, and 56% disapprove. The biggest drop actually came among women. 24% of women said they approved of Trump's job performance, compared to 36% who approved back in September. So this adds, a little more evidence to the arguments that the editorial board at USA Today is making. Again, the way that this was written was far more aggressive than anything else that I've seen in establishment media, and it was ballsy. It was ballsy for them to do it, and I applaud them for it.
Did you say ballsy?
I did say ballsy.
Because I remember the USA Today having a slightly different position, which I characterize in a slightly different way back in the day. Let's watch.
Show the goddamn paper right here, okay?
What does
USA safer, Bush says. Picture, headline, USA safer, Bush says.
Okay.
USA Today, you suck balls. You are a terrible newspaper. You know what he did in that press conference yesterday and how we covered it? He lied over and over about how this was a war between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. It's not a war between Al-Qaeda and Iraq. It's a war between Shiites and Sunnis. Civil war that we're stuck in. And what does the USA Today incompetent losers say? USA safer, Bush says. That is a lie. They've done a terrible job.
Okay, so some of you know that clip. It's made the rounds a little bit from back in the day. But I show that to you because it's really important context. Because I think that the press, partly because of Trump and fighting back against his insanity, has gotten much, much better. Because my main charge back then was they called everything even. So, and if Bush said, and by the way, they're still making that mistake to some degree here, and I'll get to that in a second. But if Bush said, hey, it's Al-Qaeda versus us in Iraq, even though that was demonstrably false, they would put it in a giant headline, right? And that's why, as I was explaining in that longer version of that clip, and we'll put that in the description box, is that no, the 70% of Americans, almost 70%, thought that Saddam Hussein had personally attacked us on 9/11, and that just wasn't true. But they kept calling everything even. Now, this editorial, it makes this situation come full circle, and now have them go, or at least 180 degrees, right? Have them go, you know what? No, we got to call things as they are. And this man is, as they said in the editorial, uniquely awful. And so the job of journalists is not to be neutral. It is to be objective, and in being objective, you can say when somebody has done something wrong, or they've done a lot of things wrong. But I'm going to give you one more quote from the USA Today editorial from today. They said Obama and Bush both failed in many ways. They broke promises and told untruths, but the basic decency of each man was never in doubt. Now, I actually don't agree with that. I think that the actions of Bush unfortunately led to a lot more people dying. Hundreds of thousands of people dying, innocent civilians dying in Iraq, and a world in absolute turmoil, let alone the economic crash that cost us 8 million jobs, etc. And no, I definitely question the decency of Dick Cheney and George Bush. And so in some ways, the establishment is just using Trump as the one exception. Now, I like the way they're treating him because they're doing truth to power, right? But I wish that it wouldn't be the exception, that it would be the rule. No, and again, look, it's not a partisan thing. I wanted them to challenge Obama a lot more. But on the real stuff, not that he puts mustard on his hamburger, but that the fact that he was allowing for drilling in the Gulf. And then next thing you know, as we warned about, we had the disaster in the Gulf and the drone strikes where he pretended that they weren't killing any civilians in the beginning. And that was preposterous. So hold them all to account. This is a wonderful first step. But if you leave it at this and then just go back to business as usual, if it's Pence or even a Democrat that comes into office next time, well, then you'll have learned nothing from this exercise. So I hope it's not just because he's suffering the polls that you've gathered up the courage to do this. And it's true, 32% is uniquely miserable for a president. So I hope it sticks, and I hope that from here on out, I can continue to say that USA Today is ballsy rather than sucking balls. You just watched a video by the Young Turks, the home of the revolution. If you'd like to get the full show, come join us and become a member. tytnetwork.com/join.